Coast, the military.
Shots fired inside a Texas church. Another community shaken by gun violence. We examine the suspect's emerging history, whether there is any sanctuary from our violent society.
The U.S. music industry's major export, jazz keeps its soul and earns big money in Japan.
From CNN, with anchors Wolf Blitzer in Washington, Joey Chin in Atlanta, and Jim Murray in Los Angeles. This is The World Today.
With millions of dollars in damage in its wake and with flooded streets and damaged homes, a visible reminder of its power, the former hurricane, now tropical storm Floyd, is blasting the Northeast. Its top winds are down to the 65-mile-per-hour range as the storm continues to skirt the coastline and head toward New England. The threat of heavy rains and gusty winds were enough to send many New Yorkers home early. Roads and highways jammed quickly, schools closed, and some financial markets and government offices shut down at midday. In northern New Jersey, Hackensack saw major flooding, and a boat and scuba team had to be dispatched to rescue people stuck in their cars. More than half of today's flights were canceled at Newark International Airport. Among those battling through the storm at this hour is CNN's Deborah Farrick. She's standing by now on the southern shore of Long Island in Hampton Bays, New York. Deborah?
Well, Wolf, this really feels like a tropical storm. Very powerful winds gusting between 60 to 75 miles an hour. The surf very high right now, and as you walk onto the dunes, the sand is just biting. The greatest risk right now are these very, very heavy winds, and of course there's the fear that a lot of trees are going to go down. That is because there's been so much rain in this area. The roots are very weak, and all it takes is a very powerful gust of wind. The wind is being thought to be responsible for numerous power outages across Long Island. Some 67,000 homes plunged into darkness. The power company has succeeded in restoring about a third of the electricity to those homes. However, what's interesting is that the power is going out following the path of this storm. Several people were evacuated and taken to shelters.
I'm here because I'm afraid of the storm hitting my house, which is just a couple of miles away from here. And I'm frightened, and I don't want to be alone in the house with a storm or a tree falling on my bed.
Well, it was windy and wet, rainy. We have a lot of trees, too, and I'm afraid of the trees falling and stuff like that. Other than that, I really didn't want to go, but we had to get out.
This storm is moving very quickly across Long Island. Meteorologists say the next 4 to 5 hours are going to be the worst. People here in this area really are storm veterans, so they're doing the best they can. And of course, every official on alert here, the police department, the fire department, and hospitals all ready. Reporting from Long Island, Deborah Farrick for CNN. Joey?
In Virginia, the story was rain and lots of it. More than 1.5 feet fell in some areas. State utilities have dispatched 6,000 workers to restore the mass power outages. But in the face of all the damage, some people in Virginia Beach say it could have been a lot worse. On that, here's CNN's Jean Meserve.
The sound and the fury of Floyd. The water rose and Virginia Beach suddenly had no beach. The storm dumped as much as 20 inches of rain on Tidewater. Ground already saturated by Hurricane Dennis could hold no more, and flooding shut down roads and stalled traffic. The city of Portsmouth had no water, and statewide, 400,000 people found themselves without power.
See how we're suffering here?
But as the storm faded, it was the opinion of these vacationing seniors from New Jersey that the best bluff of the day had been Floyd's.
Yeah, we were expecting worse winds than this. We thought the water would come right up to the building. They talked about 30, 40-foot waves and surges and whatever, and we were scared.
In fact, the prevailing opinion among the flocks on the boardwalk was that Floyd had been a bit of a fraud.
Less than impressive. Right now it's just enjoyable weather, nice cool breezes and big surf.
With 11,000 hotel rooms facing open ocean and a tourism industry that generates 21,000 jobs, there was the potential for economic catastrophe here. But most of the damage was cosmetic.
We have really been blessed. We were spared. I like to say we were kissed by the storm, not decked by it.
When the sun came out, so did the surfers.
Hurricanes come through, it's the only pretty much good time to come out here. It's just good fun. Get slammed.
In the space of 2 hours, from state of emergency to surf's up. Jean Meserve, CNN, Virginia Beach.
One of the most violent storms this hurricane season is quickly becoming a memory tonight. Tropical storm now, Floyd, weakening as it heads up the east coast. CNN's Jeff Flock has been covering Floyd from Jacksonville to Jacksonville, that's the one in Florida, to the one in North Carolina, and offers a look at the storm's fury.
We are just now coming to the end of what has been a very long day, night, early morning of reporting on this hurricane coming to Jacksonville, North Carolina.
We started Monday in Jacksonville, Florida with one goal: to get the worst of it. So while everyone else was pointed west in the traffic jams on routes like I-10 and I-16, we had clear sailing with our fellow hurricane hunters in the other direction. We watched the boards go up on St. Simon's Island in Georgia and then headed north to try and head Floyd off. But by the time we got past Charleston, South Carolina yesterday afternoon, the roads were already washing over and out. By nightfall, we approached the second Jacksonville in a driving rain and got in place just in time to watch the power transformers blow. Fortunately, we were rolling as the flashes lit up the sky. We were able to continue reporting live, even as the eye was passing within just a few miles of it.
And we stood out in this hurricane pretty much for the whole time.
We got lucky. We got there in time, and the storm cooperated by weakening.
If it had been a Category 4 or even a Category 3, we wouldn't have been able to do that.
In the end, why? What is it that makes us work so hard to get in so much trouble? I suspect everyone has their own reasons.
People who are fascinated by nature and the kind of display that it can put on can do nothing better than try to communicate that to other people.
Jeff Flock reporting to us. For the latest fix on Floyd tonight, we check in with Flip Spiceland in the Weather Center now. Hey, Flip.
Thank you, Joy. As we speak, the new data is coming in. This was as of 5 o'clock this afternoon, and they still had wind speeds of 65 miles an hour reported in association with what is now Tropical Storm Floyd. We fully suspect that it will continue to weaken. That would be the case that you would expect in this sort of a situation. But it is racing along now at 30 miles an hour. Still very heavy rainfall is expected to be the problem as you follow its path right along the coast of New England between now and Friday evening, but it is moving very, very quickly, and we think flooding is now probably the greatest threat. Flash flood watches are in effect from North Carolina northward all the way up into Maine. We have had reports of up to 18 inches of rainfall. At one time this afternoon in Virginia, a severe flood warning was issued. I didn't even know such things existed, severe flood warnings. Now, this is the forecast for the rainfall potential over the next 24 hours. And you can see on our map, we're showing 5+ inches, but I've been looking at some of the local forecasters in here, and they're talking about much more than 5 inches, maybe even up to 8 inches, maybe even up to a foot of rainfall. I think that's probably a little heavy because it's moving so very, very quickly. As we take a look at our tropical storm warning map, you can see that tropical storm warnings are still in effect in the area. And there's one other thing that we want to show you. For those of you who were fortunate enough to be asleep last night and missed it, this was landfall. You can see the eye moving on shore just at Cape Fear, just to the south of Wilmington at 2:30 a.m. in the morning. Is there any drastic change in the wind speeds that we have here? It looks as though that the wind gusts of 52 miles an hour were reported at Buzzards Bay, Massachusetts, and it looks as though that it is still a tropical storm. We'll keep you posted on this. Joey?
Flip, one other note about the weather and the forecast for the future. A dire prediction about natural disasters from the United Nations, which suggests that Hurricane Floyd was a sign of things to come. According to its report, Earth in the next millennium will face more and bigger hurricanes, floods, and droughts as well. It's blamed on a warming climate brought on by pollution. Jim?
Joey, the weather is not a factor here in Monterey, California. I'm here covering the Jazz Festival. Coming up later in our broadcast, the business of jazz, born in America, but big in Japan. But first, the latest on the Fort Worth shootings, and in tonight's Focus segment, the real battle to come over guns. Also, another explosion rocks Russia. Nearly 300 have now been killed. This is The World Today.
Promise you'll call me Captain.
I will, I promise. Wherever you are and whatever you do, Allianz with its global partners is the power on your side.
I will lose myself in the sound of the engine and watch the white lines on the road shoot by me like a million comets.
With Days Inn hotels in over 1,800 cities and towns, you can go as far as you want. We'll always be right down the lane. Days Inn. There you go.
Well, it's time to go.
Oh, we love having you here.
Oh, we'll be back. It's a great place.
Thanks.
Have you always had this inn? No, we ran our own printing company.
This was always our dream for when we retired. You should have seen it before.
It needed a lot of work. We did it. I don't know if we'd be able to do it. You'd be surprised.
Martin got us investing with T. Rowe Price.
Even helped us work out what we could spend once we retired. Maybe we ought to think about that.
I think so.
T. Rowe Price, helping people invest with confidence for over 60 years.
From Fort Worth, Texas today, so many difficult and seemingly unanswerable questions, both for that community and the rest of the nation. A gunman opened fire at a church service for teenagers last night, killing 8 people, including himself. Today, police learned about the suspect and the weapons used in that attack. Our coverage begins with CNN's Jim Hill in Fort Worth.
Only way that you're gonna live. Do it!
From the gunfire and chaos at the Wedgwood Baptist Church, an image is emerging of how police say 47-year-old Larry Ashbrook stormed a crowded prayer meeting of teenagers and adults. Authorities say Ashbrook used 2 semi-automatic handguns and a pipe bomb. After killing 3 adults inside the church entrance, he rushed into the prayer meeting of 150 people. Inside, he opened fire again, reloading several times and tossing the bomb.
Children thought it was a skit because we were having a youth rally with the band, and it was a man that just began shooting, and there were lots of fire.
Police say he killed 7 people before killing himself.
What did he do? Describe what he did.
He put it to his head and he shot himself.
Some 250 local, state, and federal officers have been working the case. Police say they found some 100 pieces of evidence, including 30 spent shell casings. They also say they found 3 spent magazines on the floor of the church, 1 magazine in the suspect's gun, and 6 more in his jacket pocket, each of those fully loaded with 15 rounds. They also say they believe the suspect acted alone and that he chose his church target at random. In Ashbrook's home, police say they found pieces of cut pipe, explosives, and fuses. Authorities also say one of the guns he used, a .380 caliber pistol, was purchased by Ashbrook in 1992 from a now-defunct flea market gun shop. The other weapon, a 9mm semi-automatic pistol, may have been purchased at the same flea market. Wedgwood Baptist Church is in a middle-class community, a conservative congregation of about 1,000. The prayer meeting was supposed to be a time for teenagers to reflect on and pray over the troubles of the world. But Wednesday evening, the troubles of one man, Larry Ashbrook, came to them. Jim Hill, CNN, Fort Worth, Texas.
This is Ann McDermott in Fort Worth. Larry Ashbrook lived with his parents when he was a teenager attending Fort Worth's O.D. Wyatt High School, and he continued living with his parents until their deaths. As neighbors said, they watched him grow into a troubled man.
You could see it. He was always talking to himself. He would be as close as you and I, and you can just hear him carrying on a conversation with himself.
Well, he was kind of like a loner. And
people here watched in near disbelief as FBI agents, assisted by ATF personnel and local law enforcement officials, carried evidence out of the Ashbrook home in this modest neighborhood of one-story brick residences. Few said that they thought Ashbrook was dangerous, just odd. He had trouble getting and keeping a job, and he had a habit of carrying around a dark blue canvas tote bag that no one seemed to know what was inside. The neighbors also said Ashbrook became more difficult after his mother died several years ago. Sometimes he could be heard shouting at his elderly father, who died earlier this summer.
Well, just
at the last, everybody thought he was sort of strange.
And according to the FBI, shortly before the killings, Ashbrook's bizarre behavior accelerated. Agents found cement dumped down a toilet in the Ashbrook house and more.
Holes in the walls, furniture's upside down, photographs have been hacked up. He virtually destroyed the interior of his house.
They did not find any recent notes or a computer or other clues that might be able to point to a motive. And neighbors are just as puzzled.
This is the first time something like this ever happened. Very devastating.
Happen it did. But one law enforcement official here says we may never know why. Ann McDermott, CNN, Fort Worth, Texas.
In this time of debate over gun ownership, a sign of changing times in San Francisco, California, one of the last gun stores in that city is closing for good. Customers lined up today outside the 52-year-old gun exchange. The store's owners say they are frustrated by the paperwork required by California's new gun laws. A mass shooting today in South Africa. A black officer went on a killing rampage at a military base, killing 6 white soldiers and a civilian before he was gunned down. 5 other people were wounded. Authorities have not ruled out race as a factor. Racial tensions have been on the rise since the post-apartheid integration of the South African National Defense Force. Wolf?
Also overseas, for the 4th time in 4 weeks, an explosion has ripped through an apartment building in Russia. This time, at least 17 people are dead, another 180 injured, raising the number of people killed in 4 blasts to almost 300. That's more than the combined number killed in the Oklahoma City and World Trade Center bombings. CNN's Jill Doherty reports from Moscow.
4 deadly bombings at apartment buildings in Russia in less than 2 weeks. This time, a new method, a truck bomb. Police say a truck pulled up outside the 9-story complex in the southern city of Volgodonsk at 6 a.m. 15 minutes later, it exploded, ripping off the front of the building. As rescuers searched for the dead and injured, police said there could have been even more victims. This building had earlier been searched for explosives as part of an anti-terrorism security sweep. Authorities, however, claim all 4 explosions are links in the same chain.
I'd like to be wrong, but I'm afraid I'm not. The link certainly is being examined. This explosion bears the criminal's signature. I think when the experts will report what explosives were used, we're going to be able to say that with a high degree of certainty.
The bombing campaign was subject number 1 in a meeting between Russian Prime Minister Vladimir Putin and President Boris Yeltsin.
I'm certain that we will surmount the problem, but only if we recognize the seriousness of the threat to our country, and having faced this danger, mobilize the force and resources to meet the challenge.
Russia, Putin says, must mobilize quickly, but already some Russian law enforcement officials warn the bombers are switching tactics, using methods like truck bombs that are harder to prevent. Jill Doherty, CNN, Moscow.
NATO today defended the effectiveness of its 78-day air campaign against Yugoslavia. There's a growing perception the bombing did little damage to Serb forces in the field. CNN's military affairs correspondent Jamie McIntyre is at the Pentagon.
NATO is scaling back its initial estimate of how much damage its bombing campaign did to Yugoslav forces, but insists the air war was still a success.
The conflict ended on NATO's terms. Serb forces are out, NATO forces are in, the refugees are home.
NATO concedes its planes hit about 24 inflatable decoys, but says the initial scorecard was not that far off. It claimed in June that 110 tanks were destroyed. Now it says 93. Back then, it listed 210 armored personnel carriers as destroyed. The new number, 153. Overall, instead of 1,219 targets hit successfully, it was more like 974, about 80% of the initial estimate. That's bean counting, argues NATO's top commander, not a true measure of military effectiveness.
I think what we found was that the Serb use of heavy equipment was quite constrained as a result of the air power.
But in Washington, more photographic evidence from FBI war crimes investigators just back from Kosovo. That widespread killing went on even as NATO planes flew helplessly overhead. The pictures show what happened to a family of 23 Albanians.
It shows a red snowsuit which was on a 4-year-old boy that had been shot. He actually had some hand grenade shrapnel in the skull part of his remains.
Some U.S. commanders fault Clark for bowing to political pressure to try to stop ethnic cleansing from the air, an impossible mission, instead of insisting sooner on heavier attacks on strategic targets such as power grids and command centers. Jamie McIntyre, CNN, The Pentagon.
President Clinton is offering to send a small contingent of U.S. troops to East Timor. The first troops to join the Australian-led peacekeeping force arrived in Darwin, Australia today, a company of 250 British Army Gurkhas. Mr. Clinton says he would contribute at least 200 U.S. troops to the mission. An advance party is expected to land in East Timor Saturday. The head of the Indonesian army says once that occurs, he will pull his troops out. Tens of thousands of people have fled violence by government militias since the territory voted for independence last month.
Ahead here in our Moneyline report this hour, an Olympic bid and a report which suggests that Southern hospitality took its generosity too far.
Water, the building block of life, the most abundant resource on the planet. And they have the nerve to charge you $1 a bottle? $1? Come on, what's up with that? Who's pricing this stuff? Well, at least you can get all your long-distance calls for only 99 cents.
That's right. Just dial 1010-220, and all calls up to 20 minutes are only 99 cents, and just 9 cents a minute after that. Any day, any time. No fees, no switching phone companies. Just dial 1010-220.
Cheers.
In the last 13 years, Nicorette helped over 1 million people help themselves stop smoking. And that was the reason that convinced me to use Nicorette.
All these people knew it was safe and effective. Nicorette delivers a low level of nicotine fast to help control cravings without the tars and toxins found in cigarettes. And Nicorette was proven safe and effective in more clinical trials than any other product.
Just the idea that Nicorette had helped all those people made me feel that Nicorette was the right choice for me in the end. Which it was.
Nicorette helps you fight your cravings, your habit, your way. You can do it. Nicorette can help.
Together by human ingenuity, create a power greater than either apart. Put the powers of world-class corporate and investment banking to work for your company and watch your possibilities take flight. Citibank and Solomon Smith Barney, because we can, you can.
I'm born in Kansas City. Kansas City, here I come. On the road to Morocco, Chicago.
FedEx carries more express packages to more places than any other shipping company on the planet. Everywhere from Georgia to Barcelona. About the only thing we can't carry is a tune. FedEx. Be absolutely sure.
Introducing a space-efficient, remarkably upgradable computer from NEC. The evolution of the computer ends with Z. The new Z1 from NEC with an Intel Pentium 3 processor.
Let's turn now to the nation's business. Willow Bay has tonight's Moneyline update. Willow?
Thanks, Jim. Was there foul play by Atlanta's Olympic organizers? And Floyd slams Wall Street and stocks end up underwater again. We'll look behind the closing numbers and more when the Moneyline update continues.
Tonight's Moneyline Update is brought to you by J.P. Morgan.
I will help one client succeed. Then I will help another.
I would seek answers to questions others wouldn't bother to ask.
Je n'aurai pas toujours la solution, mais je réussirai à la...
I will rush to the defense of facts.
I work for JP Morgan.
I work for JP
Je
Morgan.
travaille pour JP Morgan.
Trabajo en JP Morgan. I work for JP Morgan.
Hurricane Floyd kept many Wall Street traders at home, but with trading volume light, the Dow plunged over 100 points, then rebounded later in the session to close down 63 points at 10,737. The Nasdaq slipped 7 points to land at 2806 after a bearish internet report took a hard look at .com companies. The 30-year Treasury bond gained a third of a point to bring the price to 119.30 seconds with a yield of 6.08%. On Capitol Hill, lawmakers examine the issue of day trading and whether day trading firms are misleading clients.
We'll do the 11 o'clock tonight.
That many day traders do not fully understand the level of risk that they are enduring. I am concerned that many people may be lured into the false belief that day trading is a surefire strategy to make them rich. And when individuals are swayed by misleading advertising, the Commission has a duty to act.
The Securities and Exchange Commission has discovered at least 10 instances of possible wrongdoing by day trading firms. The government's probe into the Olympic bribery scandal now focuses on the 1996 Games. And tonight, an admission that the process that brought the Games to Atlanta was questionable. CNN's Aram Roston reports.
Excess was part of the system. That's the latest admission from the organizers of Atlanta's Olympic Games.
It was obvious to me that this system would be subject to abuse.
Former U.S. Attorney General Griffin Bell prepared a revised report for congressional investigators on how the city won the Games. The report lists lavish gifts and expense-paid shopping trips. It lists repeated violations of International Olympic Committee rules. And the report says Atlanta's generous travel program presented a temptation to aggressive IOC members to convert travel benefits to cash. Atlanta's organizers have always insisted they did nothing wrong, even as details of their campaign have been trickling out. Billy Payne, the force behind the Games, is a hero in the city with a larger-than-life statue downtown.
I wrote the report.
Griffin Bell says Payne was not necessarily aware of the excess.
And it probably never had been brought to his attention before. Just what did happen.
Payne says he just did not realize it until this report.
We believe we were playing by the rules and regulations and guidelines as we understood them to be.
So why was Atlanta selected? It says it was the most qualified. But still, in the report, Bell makes the allegation the votes were not necessarily cast on the merits. The IOC has said Atlanta pushed favors on its members.
I think our actions speak for themselves would be the way to answer that, right, Judge?
I realize that they said we took advantage of all these poor people. Pressed all these gifts on them. It's terrible, isn't it? We'll wait and see how that works out.
Atlanta's organizers say they are now releasing boxes of files they have so far tried to keep from the public. Those boxes contain controversial information on IOC members, even in some cases gossip about which members would accept sexual favors. Bell's report concludes that while there were excesses and violations of IOC rules, there were no actual bribes paid. Aram Roston, CNN, Atlanta.
Coming up ahead of the curve, your first look at some of tomorrow's financial events that might move the markets. And Bill Gates opens his heart and cashes a big check. You're watching the Moneyline Update.
At 25, I wanted to make vice president. At 35, I wanted to make my first $1 million. At 45, I wanted to make enough to buy the company. Now all I want is to make it around this track 0.2 of a second faster.
At Lincoln Financial Group, we provide clear, understandable, customized solutions to help you manage, protect, and enjoy the work of a lifetime. Lincoln Financial Group, clear solutions in a complex world.
If you had Sprint, you could be talking about the kids for 5 cents a minute. Introducing Sprint Nickel Nights. Now calls are just a nickel a minute every night. Switch now and catch the fever. Call 1-800-PIN-DROP.
With Days Inn hotels in over 1,800 cities and towns, you can go as far as you want. We'll always be right down the lane. Days Inn. There you go.
Hey, guys are not quiet about sports. But when it comes to prostate health,
Here are the facts. If you're over 40, testosterone levels can start to drop, and that impacts urinary and prostate health. Prostatonin is a new natural supplement proven to safely help maintain prostate health to avoid too many trips to the men's room. Now that's worth making some noise about. Take Prostatonin. It's a guy thing.
Weeknights, the most responsive and immediate news magazine on television. Newsstand, weeknights, 10 Eastern, on CNN.
In a growing state like Oregon, needs are constantly changing, like an ever-shifting puzzle. Oregonians have directed lottery dollars to help, where they're needed, when they're needed. Oregon's lottery has returned over $2 billion and today supports our most valuable resources, our economy, our schools, and our environment. Because what no one wants to change are those special things that make Oregon feel like Oregon. It does good things.
There's no thrill like discovery. The Discovery Channel. Explore your world.
Sponsored in your community by West Coast Bank.
The Moneyline News Hour. Weeknight, 6:30 Eastern. You are what you know.
Keeping you ahead of the curve, here's some information to prepare you for tomorrow's markets. It's triple witching on Wall Street. That could cause more volatility than normal if traders are delayed by the remnants of Floyd. Keep an eye out for the latest figures on the housing market and Y2K comments from Fed Chief Alan Greenspan. Also, watch shares of Nike and Adobe Systems. Both stocks rose in after-hours trading after beating earnings expectations. Bill Gates and his wife have $1 billion fewer dollars, and thousands of minority students will be all the richer. Gates and his wife Melinda today announced the creation of a massive scholarship fund for minority college students. They were accompanied by Bill Gray, the head of the United Negro College Fund. The chairman of Microsoft explained their incentive.
You know, if you look at our industry and you say who's getting these great jobs, if you look at the pipeline, go back into the universities or even before that and say, who's setting themselves up so that they can be part of this and contribute to this, it's not fully representative. And a huge part of that is that the costs of being involved in that are very, very high. And we feel that everything that can help with this, every minority that you encourage to get involved in these areas, that you make it easier for them as they go through college, they'll be a great example. They'll be a leader, somebody who goes back to their community and helps encourage more people to get involved.
Not bad for a college dropout. The scholarship program providing assistance to 1,000 students yearly begins next year. Assistance will go to students pursuing degrees in education, engineering, math, and science. Coming up at 10 p.m. Eastern on CNN Newsstand, my colleague Tony Guida will have your final look at today's top business stories, including the latest on mortgage rates. They're coming down again. He'll have a report on mortgage options that could save you big money. And for all the day's business news and a closer look at the markets, don't forget to click on our website at cnnfn.com. Now back to Wolf Blitzer in Washington. Wolf.
Thanks, Willow. As Hurricane Floyd made things dangerous along the U.S. East Coast, Typhoon York was tearing things up half a world away. From Hong Kong, CNN's Mike Chinoy reports.
A city of 6 million brought to a standstill as Typhoon York pounded Hong Kong with winds of nearly 100 miles an hour. Its ferocity was something of a surprise. Late Wednesday night, York was almost stationary in the South China Sea. Suddenly, it picked up steam. Within hours, Hong Kong authorities had hoisted the number 10 typhoon signal, the highest possible alert. By rush hour time on Thursday morning, the territory's normally bustling streets were deserted as York scored a direct hit, the eye of the storm passing over the city center. Shops, banks, schools, financial markets, and all public transport shut down. Fallen trees and other debris blocked many roads. In outlying areas, there was widespread flooding. Scores of people were rescued from their inundated homes by firemen. Hong Kong's airport was shut down. All flights canceled or delayed. Thousands of passengers inconvenienced. In the territory's famous harbor, boats were tossed around like toys. Several larger vessels ran aground. Hong Kong police rescued 5 crew members of a sinking Chinese freighter. The storm also hit the neighboring Portuguese territory of Macau before moving inland over southern China. Of the more than 400 people injured here, most were hit by flying debris, as shattered windows, broken signs, and damaged scaffolding were tossed through the streets. Given the ferocity of the storm and Hong Kong's densely packed population, there's a widespread belief here it could have been much worse. But Hong Kong has one of the most sophisticated tropical storm warning systems in the world.
And since it sits squarely in a region plagued by tropical storms, people here take those warnings seriously. Mike Chinoy, CNN, Hong Kong.
Hurricane Floyd, now a tropical storm, continues to move northward this evening, bringing rain and high winds across the northeast. Floyd began to lose steam as it made landfall early this morning. Now let's take a look back at Floyd's trek up the coast. Thursday, 3 a.m., now a Category 2 storm, Floyd brushes South Carolina, making landfall at Cape Fear, North Carolina. Winds top 110 miles an hour, up to 15 inches of rain falls. Flooding